Hey guys, my name is Nikki.
I'm Clara.
And we are wellness counselors from South Africa. And we are both neurodivergent, ADHD, and we decided to do a survey with our clients, our family and friends who are also neurodivergent, and just talk about the common challenges, what we'd like to see improve in education, and just in terms of tips and tricks of how to help a neurodivergent brain.
There's a lot of talking, there's a lot of demonstrating, there's a lot of personal stories, skip what's boring.
And some ADHD interrupting.
Yes, but we know it's actually really short because I'm like hutful, we just skip all of it and then it's like, just like 7 minutes or something and that's fine. But
we're
also,
not medical professionals,
No.
so we cannot advise medically. However, in this podcast, we do talk about trends, things that we see that's very common amongst neurodivergents in terms of physical health.
Talk about our own experiences as well.
Yeah.
And enjoy.
So neurodivergent refers to anyone who has a brain that is different to the norm. So it's your nervous system wiring. You can think about it as your hardware. So it's like, I am both autistic and ADHD. So I have autism hardware and ADHD hardware. I have a fundamentally different brain and nervous system operating system than a neurotypical. So it's neurodivergent is sort of the parallel opposite to neurotypical. If your brain functions in the typical way, the neural pathways fire, you have motivation naturally, you don't struggle with mundane things, you think quite linear, that's very much sort of neurotypical. Neurodivergent is any other type of brain.
Yeah.
And you can use the word neurotype. I find that quite helpful. It's quite neutral. So the type of wiring you have. It's not something that you can make go away. It's not something that it suddenly comes into your life because there's been trauma. It's your genetics. It's 90% genetic. So any client who comes to me who's autistic or ADHD or both, they have a parent who is also neurodivergent. So neurotypical, neurodivergent. You're neurodivergent. I'm neurodivergent.
I've been so proud of myself not interrupting, by the way. My impulse control has been on point. Thank you.
I also am like, so neurotypical, neurodivergent. Then you get the term neurodiversity. So this refers to a state in a group, whether it's diverse or not. So in other words, you and I, we are not currently a neurodiverse group because we are both neurodivergent.
Yes.
You have ADHD, I'm ADHD. If a neurotypical came and sat with us, that's neurodiverse. The main thing that shows up in ADHD is differences in executive functioning. So amongst other things like a sensitive nervous system, there's a bunch of other stuff, but the main way it shows up in terms of how it affects you is your executive functioning. So your executive functioning happens up here in the uppermost part of your brain. This is where your higher order thinking takes place. So analysis, sort of critical thinking, comparing and contrasting. So very much like higher grade abstract thinking, making decisions, that kind of thing. So it's like the stuff that you use when you're working, when you're studying, or when you have to make serious choices. So in a neurotypical brain, everyone has their own sort of unique, you might be really
even
good at
neurotypical people there's obviously differences. None of us have the exact same brain.
Exactly. So someone might be better in memory, but then they might not be good in time awareness. So there's different categories of executive functioning, and the main ones that you see ADHD is struggling with because they have differences in the way their brain processes those areas is memory. So working memory. This is basically, we have short-term memory, long-term memory, and then something called working memory. Short-term is anything you've just done.
Short-term isn't like, in the past week, it's immediate.
Yeah, it's immediate. It hasn't settled into your brain. It hasn't been crystallized into
Can I give an example? Earlier you're talking and you're like, what am I talking about? I'm like, what am I talking about? Would that count as short-term?
That's actually working memory.
Okay.
So working memory it's in the name, right? It's when we need to pull things out from our memory to apply to the situation that we're in. So you will use working memory anytime you're reading a book, for example. So older ADHDers, you might relate to this, like reading a book and feeling like you end up reading the same paragraph over and over.
I'm practically a child and I've been there. I'm so youthful.
That is working memory at play. And if it's not exciting, if it's not visual, if it's not your area of interest, you're going to struggle. So working memory could also be applying it to lessons learned. Okay, so impulsivity is also one of the categories of executive functioning. So the ability to rein in your impulses and urges or you can be not so good in that area. And ADHD impulsivity is a huge thing because our brain works so fast. We're on the go.
It's the interrupting as well.
We like the interrupting, which you can probably tell we both got to work hard on in a podcast. So working memory. So an example of this would be, last week I drove to an event. I'm going again this week. I was late last week. Working memory will remember why I'm late. It'll instruct me what not to do or what to avoid or how to compensate for that. So it really helps us make decisions. ADHD struggle with this. So you might be someone who finds it hard to learn from others. It's almost like you have to learn it yourself, or you might find yourself repeating the same mistakes because you forget. You forget that last time that wasn't a good idea. So working memory is active all the time. I'm using working memory right now as well. So also pulling out my long term. So it's working memory, impulsivity, emotional regulation. It's your admin part of the brain. It's like
admin,
the boss.
Kind of
it's
logical,
like CEO and...
But it doesn't mean that we can't do it. It's just that we need more structures in place to do it easily. And it can become incredibly frustrating. There's so much like internalized ableism when you, like for me, for example, eating. Why am I not eating? Okay? Well, because making food, I don't like it. It takes time. Having to remember what groceries to buy, having to know what I've already got, having to do stuff like washing dishes and pack it away. It sounds like I'm just being lazy.
That's a neurotypical sort of response because, can I tell you why? Like, not to fault the neurotypical people, but those processes are often automatic in a neurotypical
So that's
brain.
the whole thing. So then I go like, I don't like that I struggle with this. And if it was easy for me to change, I would change it. It's only been like this past 2 years that I've become very aware of executive dysfunctioning. I was diagnosed when I was about 17, so I've been on medication for I'm 31 now, what is that, 14 years?
14 years, yeah.
Wiskunde. And it's only literally for the past 3 years or so that I've become aware that just because I'm on medication doesn't mean that shit's sorted. Okay, so quickly to go back to the questionnaire executive dysfunctioning is, this was you call it a Likert scale.
Yeah, Likert scale is just like 1 to 10.
Strongly
It's
disagree
Likert
to
scale.
strongly agree, neutral in the middle. So more than half of the participants indicated agree to strongly agree to these following things. Executive dysfunction had a negative impact on my ability to manage life effectively. I'm not just a 13-year-old boy running around disrupting class. That's not what I am. It's actually how I manage my life. On my social skills to effectively manage job requirements, it leads to mental health struggles such as anxiety, depression, low self-esteem. It unintentionally gets me into trouble. I blame myself for not being able to do things that neurotypical people can do. I feel very misunderstood, and it's got a negative impact on my ability to cope and general well-being. So the stuff that we talk about, executive dysfunction, we talk about, it's your kind of day-to-day practical functioning. But if it's your literal, it's daily that you're struggling with this stuff, it's not like an easy, cool.
And I think that's where it's a huge misnomer to call people lazy who have ADHD. And it's a huge fallacy to say that ADHDs don't have motivation. So that's what you will normally hear in schools when you're studying from families, right? They are perceiving that you're lying on the couch, not doing anything for hours. What's actually happening in your brain is probably you are recalling a whole bunch of different things and you're planning this and you're coming up with a new idea. Or you are busy thinking of all the things you need to get done and it makes you so stressed and paralyzes you. That is executive dysfunction. It is not your fault. It is your wiring, and there are ways to work with it. So these pathways, right? Because these are neurons, and these pathways can be worked on. It's like a muscle. You can build it. So here's an example. Also on the executive functioning wheel so it's task initiation. So starting a task planning and prioritization. The ability to break a task down into small bits, which is not a natural way of being for an ADHD brain.
Is that so on the one hand we get the lying on the couch and I'm absolutely paralyzed because there's so much stuff I need to do, I don't know where to start. Opposite is I'm so motivated. I'm going to start immediately. I'm going to do it right now. I'm going to maybe spend way too much to get the tools or the techniques or whatever. Or I'm going to start and then I'm going to be like, right, I don't have half the stuff that I need. No, I'm completely, no, I can't do it. which then, so you've got all these tasks, these things that you're inspired by, that you're motivated to do. There's something I've been struggling with. I've got all these ideas. I want to do this and this and this. And I get the motivation to go, but the motivation isn't consistent. And I don't know how to pace myself.
So I'm glad you brought that up. So motivation and pacing. So you have to learn how to motivate your brain, and our brains don't work like neurotypical. So our brains, I love this acronym. There's this acronym called PINCH. It stands for pinch, and it stands for what motivates our brain as opposed to a neurotypical brain.
What's the P?
So P is passion or play.
Passion!
More passion!
More passion! More energy! More energy!
More passion! More passion!
Let's get our passion in this to keep our viewers captivated instead of just listening. Okay, I've got passion.
More passion. More energy. What are we talking about?
Pinch.
See, that's a working memory
and
issue.
Also this is working together, body doubling.
Okay, so...
No, we're not doing that, we're doing pinch first.
Okay, we'll come back to body doubling, but it's in pinch.
Okay.
I'll tell you. Okay.
What's the I?
Passion, interest.
I was so interested in what you're saying right now. I'm just trying to help
focus, right?
Okay, yeah.
Okay, here's the thing about ADHD. It's called attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. It is not a deficit of attention. We actually have a serious amount of attention.
This regulation.
Way more than neurotypicals. Our brains move faster. There are more thoughts. Our nervous system is constantly firing. So it's not that we don't have, it's that we need to refine those, and we need to do it in a way that's quite different to what society tells us. So lists are not going to work. They're just going to make you feel shame. Unless it's like done lists.
Yes.
Right? Because done lists give you the reward, or a brain dump. So you find ways to motivate your brain. So passion, interest, novelty. So anything that's new.
I'm telling you, we need to bring in this thing because I'm so sweaty
It's
right now.
a good way to remember.
Yes, because we've got passion, interest, novelty.
C is cooperation, challenge, or competition. This is where body doubling will fall in. So
great cooperation.
It's saying the same thing.
Or competition.
Yes. So in other words, Clara, you and I have been wanting to get started on social media and podcasts for ages. But for both of us, that task felt overwhelming because nothing for us is automatic. We have to think about every single and then we have to think about other stuff like our sensory issues.
And you
right?
get distracted.
Like, can't be too bright lights. Like, I need to not have noise in my ear. So we actually have far more complex things going on in our brain than neurotypicals, and it's part of the reason why we burn out so quickly. So competition, cooperation, or challenge. So body doubling, as I just said, we decided to work together because it kept us going. And even then, we still had to push ourselves.
But it was fine. We were very understanding. You gave me a heads up, like, you struggle with chronic pain, for example.
So the days where I can't do anything.
I'm also like, what if I just wake up and I just don't want to do it? Like, that's okay. Let's give ourselves 2-3 weeks.
Flexibility.
Yes.
So because your brain might be on a high focus day, or it might be on a burnout day, or it might be on a sensory freak out day. So that's another thing, being extremely flexible with your brain in a way that society doesn't really allow. So, and that affects like ADHDers and neurodivergent people. But in terms of the competition, so like an example would be joining a running group. Right? There's a goal to work towards. There's people you're doing it with, and there's a sense of, I can compete against my best time.
Give an example.
Yeah.
So, okay, I've got 2 examples. The one is this idea that ADHD people like, and I'm referring to ADHD because that's what I live with. Hold on.
We're talking about sports.
Okay, so academics, for example, this idea, we're not academic people, whatever. I love writing. Give me a thesis to write. I'm gonna write it. And yes.
Let me say something. Sorry, you finished.
I've got 2 things. So let me finish that. I want to write it because I want to improve my own marks. And it's a very good thing of, I found the information, I put it together, I can convince you. There we go.
Challenge.
The other example was, for I'm seeing my psychiatrist at some point soon, and I've been struggling with the most intense fatigue. I don't know if it's a hangover from the medication I need to take, blah, 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 blah. But I'm also like, it's very likely because I don't eat enough. So, which is like so obvious. Now I'm like, I need to put in the effort to eat 3 meals a day.
With snacks?
Let's hoist snacks in. Let's just try, okay? Just eat more than I do. But by the time I see my psychiatrist, I actually know cool, babes, I'm feeling actually a lot more energized because I've been eating. Because then I'm wasting that session with her, and I don't want to have to go and like change medication if it's actually just physiology. That's the really deadline thing of, okay, well now I've got to do it now because there's also a consequence if I don't do it.
Yeah. So deadlines are like ADHD bread and butter when it comes to getting stuff done. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. The only time that becomes a problem is when you get older and you can no longer pull an all-nighter.
Yeah.
Or you've been through burnout, which is exceptionally common. If you are a neurodivergent living a neurotypical life, you are going to burn out. You're going to give yourself chronic illness. Your brain chemistry will be forever altered because you are working on like 200% every day just to do an output like a neurotypical.
Okay, back to pinch.
Sorry, we'll get there. So you can compete against yourself, you can challenge yourself, and body doubling falls in there. Then the H is haste. So in other words, urgency, that's where deadlines fit in.
Hasty. Clara, we're talking about emotion regulation. So a big thing that we spoke about earlier was executive dysfunction, and that's kind of the how to live. Now, emotion regulation is how we express our feelings. Or it's actually the intensity of your feelings, how it's expressed within a certain context. So, for example, I'm just going to draw from some dialectical behavior therapy notions here. It explains it quite well. So, in DBT, we have 3 tiers. Bottom tier is your rational or logical mind. That is where your decision making is happening. That's where you're on top of it, blah, blah, blah. You're not taking a lot of emotion into consideration because you're pragmatic, there's a plan.
In other words, all your executive functioning skills, abstract thinking, reasoning, taking your time, not being impulsive.
The problem here is if you stay there for too long, we get depression, dissociation, all of that stuff because you're actually not in touch.
You're intellectualizing.
The top tier is your emotion mind, where we fall in love, but we also maybe experience extreme anxiety or extreme anger because you're not in touch with the logical, rational. This is a very basic explanation of it, okay? The middle place is your wise mind. That is where you're in touch with your rational and in touch with your emotion. And it's normal, let's say something happens and makes you really angry. Let's say you go into your anger mind. We need anger. That's where Black Lives Matter happened. That's how women got the right to vote. That's where all of our protests are. Anger can lead to action. However,
anger, can I just say there, anger informs us that something is not okay in our environment.
Especially that usually a boundary has been crossed.
So it has to be there.
The thing is, so what we want to do is be able to be in touch with the logical and the emotion. So I'm feeling this emotion. How do I express that in a way that aligns with my values and actually I can get something out of it, or I can process it, or it's kind of useful in a way. The problem is when you get angry and you stay there and your cortisol is high, your adrenaline is high, it leads to...
And this shuts down, by the way. So anytime you are flooded with emotion, so you're flooded with those sensations like your heart's beating, you start shaking, you get hot. This part of your brain shuts down. So it kind of shuts off the rational mind and the emotional mind is flowing and you won't be able to access the wise mind. Am I saying it correctly?
So the wise mind is where you want to be. You want to be able to fluctuate up and down, but you don't want to be in the top or in the bottom for too long. So with emotion regulation, let's say with ADHD or whatever, is often we go from 0 to 100. So, for example, in class, that might look as very excited, quickly say something right now, but then you get into trouble for, inside voice, then you get in trouble for
being excited,
and impulsive or whatever.
And expressing it in a way that's not the social norm. So we have very intense emotions. This is a fact. There have been studies that show neurodivergent people experience emotions at a far higher intensity. So we literally have more of those emotional chemical messages running through our body. So it makes sense that our expression is going to be bigger. We need to move more because we have to allow it to kind of metabolize through our body. And I love doing things in 3s, but I don't have a 3 right now.
And a 3 is just be groovy, baby. More than half strongly agree a lack of emotion regulation skills has a negative impact on managing life effectively, social interactions, ability to manage work, to manage your stress, difficult to calm down. So once you're emotionally activated, you tend to go into emotional shutdown, mental health struggles, impulsive reactions, which they regret, feel others misunderstood their emotional responses. So learning about these things is a positive impact on coping. They wish others better understood emotion dysregulation. There's a lot of stigma around emotional expression, and there's difficulty for support. And then 62% strongly believe that education around emotional regulation and neurodiversity should be taught in schools. Now, again, I want to use this as an example. If it's not neurodivergent people being difficult, it's not a thing of, oh, I choose to react this way. It is something that we are not taught how to manage, or how to express in a way that aligns with our values and aligns with our goals and actually doesn't make it worse for us long term. We don't want to struggle with these things. We're not being difficult.
And can I say something there? If you look at neurodivergent kids, the way they move around and they climb on things and they swing and they want to touch and they get lost in watching, things just because it's pretty. That is regulation. But when you grow up, society tells you that's not okay. You can't.
Being difficult.
And so our stimming is basically forcibly kind of pressured out of us. And the things we do.
Of stimming?
Okay, so stimming. So stim comes from the word stimulate, and it refers to when you are managing. It's kind of a sensory thing. So you are managing your energy in your body. You are managing boredom. You are sometimes stimming helps you concentrate. So stimming is any kind of small movement that you're doing with an object.
Playing with this
I stim like I used to
when
stim
I
a lot
had
like
that,
this,
I
but I
would
used to
listen.
break all my necklaces, so I had to train myself. I still play with my earrings all the time. So this is regulating. It's calming, and but if I was young, I would be told stop fidgeting, or don't touch that. So I would want to go and touch all the trinkets, and I'd want to go look in all the drawers, and I got called nosy, I got called inquisitive, I got called rude, and I was just a child looking for some stimulation, because understimulation can feel very, very bad to an ADHDer. It can feel like hollow boredom, which can feel like death. This is where we should probably look at the brain chemistry. So there's a lot of talk about ADHDers metabolizing dopamine differently. So dopamine is your get up and go neurotransmitter. It's used for everything. Like it's used to make our muscles work. So every time you move your body, you're drawing on dopamine. So think of it like it's a little messenger, and it gets sent throughout your body. And it gives you basically sort of the energy, the motive to get up and go. So what happens is our brains, at a default state, we don't have the stored dopamine that just is online all the time. The only way to kick our dopamine online is for us to create interest, passion, novelty, cooperation, and hurry. So in other words, we just need to be taught what our starter motor is. If you think about a car, it has all the parts, and but ADHDers, unlike neurotypicals, when you switch on the motor, it automatically begins and you can do your thing. You don't have to think about it. Whereas an ADHDer, if the thing that we need to do is not inherently interesting to us, there ain't going to be dopamine.
So what the image that came to my head now is it's like, let's say you're practically a mechanic. You understand how the car works. You just need the key to work, but you don't have the key. How do you get the key? So to switch it on, medication, how does that help with that task initiation?
Yeah. So I would say the various keys you can use are things like psychoeducation, so educating yourself on how your brain works, like pinch, to know that you can do any task. You just got to gamify it, or you've got to make it into some kind of fun game or competition, or get someone else to help you. There's something called stacking, which is highly successful. So this is where you already have an established routine. You want to add something else. Stack it on top of the routine you already have. So in other words, you are basically cutting out quite a few executive functioning steps, right? Of I have to go get up now, I have to fetch the thing, I have to fetch that other thing that I have to use together. If it's already right there and you're doing it straight after an activity, you're already in motion. Your brain is already doing something, it's automatic. That's what stacking is. So this is how you motivate. So it's the psychoeducation to understand your brain. Medication, exceptionally helpful because it closes the gap in the dopamine kind of it's almost like your dopamine is like always taking a nap.
And it goes like this.
And it goes like this. So we can be extremely motivated when something is interesting. We can be exceptionally focused. Need to keep going as long as I still have motivation, because I was unmedicated.
Yes.
And I'm like, I can't take a break.
If I stop, I can't start again.
And so it's not lazy, it's not lack of willpower. If anyone says that, I'm like,
baby girl.
there's so much evidence I have 3 degrees, I've done an Ironman, I've done a marathon, you still want to tell me this is a lack of willpower? No. It's a difference in brain chemistry, and it is very ableist to boil ADHD down to, oh, they're lazy, they never fulfill their potential. And believe me, I heard all of that. I've seen people's self-esteem be crushed because society tells them they're lazy. Meanwhile, they need to learn about their brain. They need to take lots of sensory breaks. Medication is super helpful.
Super expensive.
Yeah, that's the thing. It is super expensive. It does come with side effects. So we're talking about the amphetamines, which, by the way, just make me sleepy and calm. So, and then I can do my thing instead of, you know.
I think also a lot of people think, I remember at university how many people are like, oh, Clara, can I buy some of your Ritalin? And I'm like, it's actually not going to work on your brain, first of all.
It works like speed, so that it helps in study, but in a different way, because they're going to be...
Yes, precisely. Whereas for us, it is like, cool, I can be grounded and actually take in.
I'm not hearing everything that's going on around me.
Like, it's okay. Second of all, it's not just about, oh, I want to get a good grade. It's about, I actually want to function like a grown-up and take care of myself.
The 3 biggies, Ritalin, Vyvanse, and then various others.
Concertas and stuff.
Concerta's kind of like the same ingredient as Ritalin. So there's various stimulants. Then what's usually can be very, very helpful is some form of antidepressant or mood stabilizer. Now, this is some research and in my personal private practice that I've seen, and of course personal experience, that a lot of antidepressants don't tend to have the typical effects on neurodivergent brains, which makes sense because we have a different type of brain, and these are brain chemicals. So I found, particularly for ADHD, serotonin-based antidepressants don't seem to work that well. More the dopamine-based or the adrenaline-based. That's your get up and go motivation. So, but it's well worth trying that medication because it can stabilize your mood. So you're not going to have those intense fluctuations, which can be extremely overwhelming. So your baseline, it'll actually flatten your emotional scope. So instead of
you stay in the white
it's going to go ding, 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 and then you can cope better. So all of these have side effects. Some of them have long-term implications. It's a very personal journey. I'm neutral because I've seen it harm people. I've seen it change people's lives for the better. I've seen doctors misuse it. Plant medicine. And what we found so interesting in our study was that the majority of people had used both. So plant medicine is becoming more and more of a thing. And you know what? Perhaps neurodivergents are using it a lot because traditional therapy isn't seeming to help them. Because most psychotherapies are based on neurotypical brains.
Because I was very high functioning, so I probably just masked a lot. They missed my bipolar diagnosis for a very long time. So I was on a stimulant, which is, you're not supposed to be on a stimulant if there isn't also a mood stabilizer. I remember getting my bipolar diagnosis and I'm like, does this mean I now need to go off the medication that has changed my life? And then my psychiatrist, like, no, if you're on a mood stabilizer, it is fine as well.
The mood stabilizer will further close that gap.
Yeah.
And where you have sensitive brains, bipolar type brains, you have to have that because it potentially, even though the antidepressants are supposed to kind of hold you in a particular band, they can actually sometimes trigger manic episodes.
Yeah, antidepressants don't work for me.
So it took me 20 years to find one that worked. I can tell you, I've literally tried like 15 different types. Okay, so I use a combination of plant medicine. So what I've noticed is weed, if it's legal in your country, can be very calming. So there's certain types of weed, indoor weed, very highly grown, that lasts long, that doesn't have, it doesn't make you too...
But someone who's smoking weed to manage all the things that we struggle with as neurodivergents, and then we're telling them, or then they, let's say, develop a dependence on it, then we're telling them, you need to not take that away because you've got a dependence on it. you're actually telling them, where we also need to take away your only coping skill.
That's the thing.
So it needs to be, I think, very informed, but like with prescribed medication also, you need to go for your checkups. You need to have someone check on you because you can be addicted to that as well.
ADHDs in particular have like 10 times higher rates of substance abuse. But it's because our brains are so loud, they're so busy, we feel everything intensely, and probably because we've got a lot of shame and negative feedback. So it provides a bit of escape. It can provide motivation, right? So this is why a lot of neurodivergent people get addicted to things like cocaine. So weed can be helpful, but it can have a long-term knock-on effect on motivation.
Yeah.
And it doesn't replace nervous system regulation. So if you're using weed to regulate, that's fine. Don't take it away from someone if it's working for them. But you're ultimately never going to improve the state of your nervous system if that's the only way you regulate it. It's working for you, use it. So also things like psilocybin, magic mushrooms. There's things like ketamine, that we have a legal ketamine treatment center in South Africa. There's also other things like lion's mane. So a lot of the plant medicine is coming to the fore, and that is so great. And then the other thing neurodivergent people should always be aware of is supplements. So research shows that most ADHDers are deficient in several supplements. This is across the board. So you can take this as you are highly likely to have a deficiency in these and you should supplement. So vitamin B12. ADHDers tend to have a...
B12!
The supplements that are usually missing or deficient are vitamin B12, omega-3.
Oh, omega.
Vitamin D seems to be quite common, and then magnesium.
So, to prove that the intensity of, so you put it professionally, the brain working differently, is I literally went to a professional gynecologist of the ear, the lady to check the ear canal, because so many people have told me, Clara, you can't hear us. And I know it's because I can't hear you.
Is this your ear gynecologist?
The ear gynecologist.
What did they say? Was there anything like physically
voice,
wrong?
Perfect hearing. She said, there are people like, oh no, ADHD doesn't exist. I'm like, baby girl, did I just pay that amount to be told that I've got perfect hearing when I know for a fact I actually can't hear? And then my friend was like, Clara, this is the first time I've ever actually get why people say they don't trust their doctors because you can't hear. And I'm like, thank you for that validating response.
It's super common. So it's like delayed auditory processing. So because we have more going on in the brain, and this is a very rudimentary way of understanding it.
You can explain it super basically, I think.
I am explaining it basically. So basically, let's just say neurotypical wants to make a decision, so decide what they're going to wear. That's going to take it'll take like quite a direct path from the one part of the brain to the other part of the brain, right? So, and that'll include some of the executive functioning, drawing on your working memory, what clothes do I have, what did I wear, what's not in the wash, all of that. And in a neurotypical brain, it goes like quite a straightforward direct path.
Like the crow flies, as we say.
Yes. Okay. Explain the same.
As the crow flies, it means it's directly. But if you go on Google Maps, you've got to stop here, you've got to turn left.
If things aren't explained to me, sometimes I take them literally. So, because remember, that's a metaphor.
Yeah.
So I need to know what is the context in which it's being used. But I love metaphors. But basically, so what I was saying is it's more of like a direct pathway, in terms of what medically it should be doing. In an ADHD brain, also like autistic brain, there are differences. So you might find instead of a direct route, you're going, it's like ping pong. It ping pongs in your brain. And the thing is, and then it takes a completely different way to get there. And then what happens is that style of thinking, which is inherent to our brain, like wiring, not just our brain chemistry, that is not acceptable in current education systems.
Yes.
It is not acceptable in the workplace. Brain, so it basically means it's a bit more like a pinball machine in our brains. So we do get to the end point, but it's not going to look like a typical way of getting to the point. This might mean we take tangents in our brain.
Can I support it?
Sure.
For example, speaking to another person with ADHD is very stimulating because yes, I might go off the point, but the other person can actually follow along. Whereas for a neurotypical person is like, well, what the hell are you talking about? Or, for example, you could say something, I'm silent, I say something completely differently, and I mean, not you, but and they'll be like, how the hell did you get there? I can explain exactly to you. You said this thing, which reminded me of that, which supported this, which brings this. So I'm actually not distracted. I'm thinking of a bunch of other things that actually adds to this. I just took a bunch of different directions.
We now have out in the wild an ADHD nesting, trying to regulate their senses. And we are going to demonstrate some examples of sensory toys and objects to help you when you've hit overwhelm. So when you're a neurodivergent person, you can go from 0 to 10 very quickly, and then you've hit the roof of what you can tolerate. So you need to decompress really quickly.
This
So
is actually really nice.
I mean, thank you. That just proves it. So this is where ADHD people, autistic people too, like to nest. We like to be comfy. So it provides stable sensory, like, inputs when we, I'm over-sensing it here.
No, you're good.
Oh, okay.
What do we have here?
Okay. Wait, where's the blanket? Okay, so this is Shark Boy, Shark Girl.
Shopping.
This is for when you need a break from the world because your sensory regulation is
Just 1 second, I can't breathe. Oh, there we go. Okay, yeah.
It's Clara the Shark today. So it's just, if you think about it, it's sensory deprivation and it's giving a continuous soft, nice feeling to this. A lot of us love texture. So simple things when you're feeling fried as a neurodivergent can help. This is a weighted blanket. This provides this pressure. And it's calming. So we're gonna, it's heavy.
Oh
How does that feel, Clara?
my god, it's so nice. I'm part of the couch now.
That's literally what I do. So sink into the piece of furniture, disappear under layers of stuff. This is also one of my favorites that's in my personal sensory self-care kit. It's a heat pack. So it's got little beans in, and it's also ticking all my other sensory like boxes. The bright color, it's a cute little apple, and it's very good for when you have pain or you just need to feel something other than. Then also we have a cold version. This is, I use this for jaw tension. A lot of us go because we have too many thoughts at night. So, and it's, you put it in the freezer. So you could do this. Yeah, you could. It is. You could do this with ice. So the idea of this is not just the rolling, which is a nice sensory texture, but it's also cold. And coldness on your face kind of brings you back.
Activates the vagus nerve, which takes you out of fight or flight and into rest and digest.
So anytime, this can work for panic attack, anxiety attack, when you're feeling dysregulated, something like heat or cold can actually, it kind of like shocks the body back into, oh, we're okay. There's some heat coming, there's some cold, we must be out of danger.
If you're in too much emotion or too little emotion, you want to get back into wise, you activate the body. So to bring you back into your wise.
So whichever end you are, over intellectualizing or too much staying in your emotions, grounding and bodily sensations. So grounding means you back into the moment, you're being present, and so feel this on your jaw.
How is it still cold? Or did you put it back in the freezer?
I don't think I did. Do you like it?
Yes.
Look at those eyes. And then also like works for like headaches when you have as well. So that's like a multifunctional toy. Then you will probably like this. This is just like a little bit of a sensory texture. It's actually like a massager, but any kind of continuous texture that you don't have the sensory ick for, it soothes you because it also brings you back into the body. So where do you want it?
Look back.
Okay. Turn over, Sharky. Can you feel it?
It's so soft, but there's so many layers. Let me tell
Yes. That's good.
Right?
Yes.
There's a lot of grounding techniques that involve sort of just grasping your arms. I love this. Just like, so, and then this I use for when I'm in queues because I can't handle. Yeah,
I'm not very good at it though.
I will do it.
Okay.
I practice it all the time.
It's like doing a tiny little fart underwater. The
Little
bath.
fart bubble in the bath.
Bubble in the
That's
bath.
what I was thinking. Little fart bubble in the bath. Which didn't happen.
Just very theoretical.
And then you can see there's commonality amongst these things, and it's texture. and it's sensory impact, and that's what you want to do. You're kind of giving sensory input and then it calms you down. So this is both a scented, it's got smell. Ooh, that's nice. Ooh, I love essential oil smells.
That's not nice. See,
Okay.
sensory
So that's the
differences.
thing. My sensory care kit will look completely different from your sensory care kit and someone else's. So this is just an illustration.
But does it feel nice?
And this, it's a little bit dry.
Is it like that sandy?
But slightly, because I haven't used it in a while, so I haven't actually,
Oh, this is also not for me.
Yeah, the texture is not great, but it's called an aromatherapy stress ball. It's got rose geranium in. That's what smells so
See,
nice.
if it was that plant which I like, and not known as star jasmine, that would have worked for me.
Okay, so there you go. So your sensory self-care kit is going to consist in smells that make you happy, textures that make you happy, pressures that make you happy, and also where's my headphones, because that's the number one piece of my sensory self-care kit.
There was the Heather. The Heather.
I think it's under that.
Heather and Heather.
I think it's under this. See, that's also ADHD, is that like it's chaotic, but I know where things are in the chaos.
My working memory was not working there. I could not remember. So you can see this is my very well used pair of high quality deep bass noise cancelling headphones, because deep bass is exceptionally soothing to me. Also being immersed in the sound, it kind of feels like it's taking me out of the stimulation of the world. So I've used this when I've broken up with people. I've used this when I've had like really shocking sort of personal rejection. I will go and sit and listen to the same song on repeat for like an hour, because the sameness is soothing, the regularity of it is soothing, and then I feel okay. So this is my primary tool when I have like autistic meltdowns, which I don't have a lot, but it basically means you get to the point where your emotions are way too overwhelming and your mind starts catastrophizing and you feel like you can't cope. So music is a very good tool for that.
Like,
This was the most ADHD podcast
It
I've
was
ever
very-
experienced.
it was very. We got really into stuff and then really off topic.
And we kept on going a million miles per hour on tangents. But if you're neurodivergent, that's probably fine for you.
Yeah, it's probably more stimulating. We hope you enjoyed it.
We are professionals, we promise.
And
We're just using ourselves as illustrations.
this is true because
Wait,
we're
we're
so.
supposed to be saying goodbye.
Oh, goodbye. Okay. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe. Subscribe isn't a thing. Like, share, comment.
Reach out if you want some neurodivergent support.
Yeah, boy.